Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the B Channel podcast, where my objective is to bless, edify, and encourage others to live their best lives. Today, we are going to have a meaningful discussion about autism and how that really needs to be talked about more in the Black community, in the world at large, really. So, I have a special guest with me today. Mona, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience? Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Mona. I am 29 years old. I am actually a financial analyst, tutor, and a vacation travel agent. And I also have autism. And the stigma that a lot of people assume is that autistic people cannot be successful and tend to not really be verbal, but a lot of us are actually very successful and we speak very well, and we just want to raise awareness to the community.
And that's a beautiful thing. We need awareness, awareness, awareness. So what do you think is the biggest misconception that you personally have experienced about autism?
The biggest perception or the misconception that I get is because I'm a woman and I'm black and I'm too pretty to be autistic. Those are the most common ones
Whoa,
I have gotten before.
that is wild. What does how you look have to do with what's going on
Exactly.
internally?
Autism doesn't have a look. Autism comes in many races, genders, and it comes in many forms and varieties.
That's deep. So what do you feel like has been your biggest struggle?
My biggest struggle, honestly, dealing with autism is about mainly making sure that people understand me socially, because sometimes the social aspect or miscommunication can be really difficult to understand, especially if someone does not know about autism. They may think that the way that I say things may come off like kind of weird or a little bit like they're unsure about me as a person, but in reality, most of the time that when I talk to people, it's with pure love and genuine, you know, concern and unconditional support.
Hmm. Yeah, I have to tell you that a lot of times when I have a friend and he has autism, right? He is one of the most tender-hearted people. Like he's sensitive, but he's a very kind-hearted person and very supportive and very talented. So it's like that kind of thing hurts to hear that people think that you can't do things just because you're differently able. You have
Right.
things that make you stand out, but not in a good way sometimes. Like, and it's a shame because like people will like try to point that out as a weakness, but
Right.
in some ways it seems like that could be a superpower because you can relate differently, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I look at my autism as a superpower. Not all autistic people feel that way, but most of us look at our autism as a superpower because we can see the world in different perspectives and have, and a lot of the stigma that people assume is that, oh, well, people who are autistic don't have emotions. And that's
Hmm.
actually a incorrect stereotype. We actually have emotions and they're super more heightened. Like, it's like you said, we're more sensitive, and it we feel things 10 times more than what other people feel. So
Hmm.
sometimes we can't really express it because it's so overwhelming with everything going on. However, when we control it and we learn to adapt, or just more so like when we realize that we are better off being who we are as an autistic person, we tend to do better.
Right, like not trying to hide it or dim
Yeah,
your
and
light.
not try to hide it. And because when we have to mask it, it feels like we're pleasing other people, and in reality that's not healthy. We all have been taught, like, just be yourself. So the same rule should apply to people with autism and ADHD and anyone who has mental health issues. And if their mental health issues are something serious or toxic, then the best way to do that is to get help and raise awareness and talk about it.
Right. Because like we were talking about earlier, it's not talked about a lot, and you know you were saying that it's like a secret in some ways, and like it's really it's really sad because I've experienced this on the caregiving side. Like you if you don't talk about it, people can't try to understand, right?
Right.
So we have to kind of let them in a little bit in our different situations in life where they won't understand to even like be more aware, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like talking about it, that's what I was since raising awareness on my Instagram and also like commenting on other people's posts about autism awareness. I had to tell people not talking about it means that you're not being 100% authentic. And especially in all communities, if you choose to hide mental health, you're not being 100% authentic in being who you are. We cannot be strong all the time. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to have emotions. It's okay to feel weak. And if people are judging you for being weak, then let them, because at the end of the day, at least you know you're being who you are authentically 100%. Because if you're not real with yourself and real with your emotions, then how are you 100% authentic and genuine and pure as a person?
Right. I think that a lot of times there is this tendency to want to hide those not so appealing to the larger society, those parts. You want to hide the scars, right? You want to hide those things that make you different. But
Right.
like we were saying, man, it's essential that you just really have those safe spaces where you can be vulnerable and just, you know, let it all hang out and be you without being judged for that, you know?
Right. And we do live in a world like, yes, there are going to be people that judge you, but let's be real. Can we all really say that we're like, perfect or strong? Because we all have a moment of weakness and we all have a moment where we hit rock bottom. But if you bring yourself out of that and you work on yourself, then at the end, the journey is going to be worth it because then you realize that you could do it. And that's why I was telling people for the first time ever, I hit my first autistic burnout. And an autistic burnout is where you are socially drained and you're meeting everybody else's social needs but your own.
Mm,
And I never had one for 29 years until this like late 2023.
mm,
And I realized I'm pulling my energy back. I'm going to start doing things that make me socially happy because I can't make everybody else socially happy because they have to understand that I'm different socially. So I realized that telling people and sharing my story has been helping a lot of young black autistic women and girls and autistic people in all communities in general.
right. It's important to make sure you have those times, like, because it is easy to burn out.
It really is, especially because a lot of people think that because I stay to myself, they're like, "Oh, you don't love me. You don't want to talk to me." No, that's not it. It's because I'm taking a break socially because my autism, I'm required to do that. If I don't do that, I'm not taking care of me. If I don't do that,
Right. A lot of people don't understand how important that boundaries are. And really, boundaries are about love. Because if I come to you and I'm burned out, I'm drained, I'm empty, how am I going to show up to serve you as my best self?
exactly.
So it's important to set those boundaries and say, you know what, maybe today I'm not going to get on social, or I'm not going to get on the phone. Maybe I'll just text, or you know, that kind of thing.
Right. And then like in most aspects too, with autism and ADHD and neurodiversity, I
Mhm.
feel like that people, instead of educating their kids, the ones that do not have autism, that hey, all kids are different. They're not going to all be like you.
Mhm.
They tend to kids with autism tend to get bullied and not make friends easy because they
Mm,
have a harder time socially and they're wired differently. And and I understand that pain growing up, but I just want every person with autism to know that they are loved and they are accepted by their community. And if they don't feel like they're not accepted by anyone, I accept them as they are. And it's okay to be yourself because the right people will come along eventually. And if they
right,
don't, then just know that you can be okay standing in your power and being who you are.
right. That's something that I noticed a lot when I talked to my friend. Is he would express that a lot, that it was hard. It's hard to make friends, or he doesn't feel that support. So it's so vital that you have a community of people who get it, right?
Right.
That ally thing going on. You need to have that ally, on somebody on your team. Like, I understand, I can relate. So have you found that community for yourself?
Honestly, I'm starting to find that community for myself. It's been a while since I had that. The biggest support that I had though are my brothers,
Oh,
and I do have one other particular person in mind that gave me that support, but I don't want to like put him out there like that, because I respect his privacy. I respect him as a
oh,
person, and he means the world to me. But that's at the end of the day. I did have some people that did support me. I also want to like thank my other friends. Like, they mean the world to me. My gaming friends. I have like
oh.
friends that I do things with that understand my boundaries and have been by my side. And yeah, it's very important to have that. And to your friend, he has a friend in me always. It's just really nice to know that you have been very supportive of him, and that's really good. And I will continue to support your friend as well. And I really just want people to be more aware that autism doesn't just come in one shade, or it should just be something that's not talked about. It should be talked about all over the world. It should be expressed in the beauty industry. It should be expressed everywhere, not just in one little thing and then just not talked about anymore. Because a lot of people don't even know that next month is Awareness Month and Autism
Oh,
Acceptance Month.
I was just about to ask you that too. I was thinking that in my head. I was like, wow, that's deep though. So it's like this will be just in time, sis. Oh my goodness. Because when this comes out, I had a different time in mind. And then it was like, you know what? I'm just gonna move this back. And I feel like that is divine. Because
Right.
I literally said that to myself. I was like, oh, I'm gonna put this in April.
Yeah.
Oh
April is Autism Awareness Month, and April 2nd is Autism Acceptance Day. And that's the day
no.
that you celebrate the person with autism. And I
Wow.
never got to celebrate that month. And this is going to be my first year actually celebrating.
Wow. Like, when did you first find out that you had autism?
I found out, well, my family found out when I got officially diagnosed at 4, but they noticed it before I was 4. They noticed it at the age of 2 that I had it.
But
And
what exactly like pinpointed that you had it?
instead of me talking, I
Mm.
would point at things or make noise. I wouldn't even talk.
Oh,
So if I wanted something, I would just point. I wouldn't even speak words. I was
mm.
nonverbal. I used to not be verbal. I used to not be able to talk.
Oh my goodness. How long did it take for you to talk?
Um, and honestly, it didn't take too long. I started really talking like after they once I got diagnosed, I started being able to talk, and I had a lot of speech therapy, or I had basically a family that would teach me to like use my words, or teachers, they made sure that teachers knew what was going on. They're like, she's super smart, she's just shy and she can't really speak, so just work with her on it. So after I think I hit the age of 6 is when I really started being able to speak full on sentences and stuff. But I started talking at like 4, and then it progressed on from there, and then I got the where I am now.
Oh my goodness, girl, you gonna make me cry because it's like their support is everything. That your family they worked with you. They made teachers aware, and they were patient with you, and they didn't give up on you. And look at you now, this financial analyst, this tutor, this vacation agent, this advocate for autism. So anybody listening, if you have autism and you're feeling like you can't make it, look at Mona. She is a living, walking, breathing testimony.
Yeah, and I definitely want people to understand that, just like I teach my students, because most of my students have autism or ADHD, I
Oh,
let them know that just because you learn a little bit slower or you don't feel like that you understand it, that everybody else understands it, it's okay. You just understand it in a different way.
yeah, and it'll
You
take
can do
time.
it. It takes time. You got it. Just because it didn't work one way, okay, let's try another way. Don't give up.
Right. And just being like okay with the process and understanding that you'll figure your way out. You'll find your path, you know.
Right.
That hope to find the path forward.
Yeah.
That's important for people because they, especially when you're young and you're out here and it's like, why am I different? Like you kind of like go inward. Probably I would assume you go inward.
Yeah,
Like, why am I
definitely.
like this and everybody else is like this? And
Yeah, because
yeah.
my parents didn't really tell me until I was 10 though, like around
Oh,
10 or 11. So because I kept wondering why I was so different, and I had to
mm,
keep switching schools, and I did not understand what's wrong
mm.
with me, why can't this happen fast enough for me or that. And then they had to explain to me, "Well, you're autistic. This is why things are different for you, and and you shouldn't feel bad for being autistic. God gave you autism for a reason, and sometimes we have to look at it as like this. How can I use my autism as a power versus as looking at it as a weakness?" And that's what I taught myself. I use my autism. My autism helps me be very, creative. It helps me be able to be very skilled in other things that people wouldn't even imagine. Like I can be able to code a whole website. I know how to do digital art. My autism helps me be super creative in so many ways.
Right. There's some people would say, "Oh, you said it's from God." They be like, "But honey, like he knows what he's doing. He wrote your story. You know, he's
Right.
not surprised by you." And a lot of times, people, especially like in faith circles, they be like, "Oh no," like, but it's like it's so important to understand that anything that happens in your life is supposed to be something to help you to you have to find a way to see it like you see it, and that's wonderful that you were able to get to that place. And I also want to say that I feel like I have empathy for your parents, how they showed up in that situation, because it's like you don't want your child to be like too young and you're trying to explain something and it's like it ends up being one of them things where you're just kind of like in your head. And I guess it felt to me when I hear you say that, tell the story, it just makes me feel like, well, maybe they were trying to protect her. Do you feel like that?
In a sense, I do, but I also know how like my parents can be, especially my mom. I know my mom can be a little bit overbearing, but I know she tries to come from a good place because um my mom had me like when she was like very young, and I get it, like raising kids when you're very young versus being a kid yourself, or trying to learn parenting, because I'm the oldest. So it's also different when you're like the oldest child,
Mm,
or having to make sure that different perspectives on it. Like you realize like no parent is going to be perfect, but most parents, when they have been sending me messages on Instagram, they're like,
mm,
I have an autistic kid. um what is your advice on this? I'm going to be honest, please be emotionally available for to your autistic children, cuz that is autistic kids and autistic adults want emotional availability, emotional reassurance from their partner. And we also love someone that can take an interest in what we have an interest in. And
Right.
sometimes we want someone to understand that when we take social space, it's not because we don't love you. It's because we are trying to take care of our mental health. When we distance ourselves, or when we're like, "Hey, I'm socially not feeling it right now. I just want to break a little bit and then I'll come back."
Yeah, and that kind of takes a lot of trust too on the other person's part, like, and being like, okay, all right, like not taking offense to that.
Yeah, just like not taking it personally. And I know that's hard to do. That's hard to do as a person, because sometimes there are certain things people do to me and I might have took it personally. Even most of the time I look at things and be like, you know what? I understand. Go ahead and do what you need to do. And then you can come back to me when you're ready to talk about it.
Yeah, the emotional availability part is really key because especially when, like you were saying earlier, sometimes you kind of feel like you have to suppress how you feel about things. So you need somebody to like see you,
Right.
see you as a person and like look and be willing to look inside and see beyond what they think they know about it.
Definitely is, yeah, because the person that I mentioned before that I felt was special to me, like he saw me for me, and he was that emotional availability. But I'm able to give that to myself as well.
Hmm.
But that's the thing that a lot of people need to understand with people with autism. We just want people to understand us emotionally, and we want people to just, you know understand that we love differently, or we love purely, but sometimes it comes out in a way that can't be really explained.
Mm. And something too, I feel like having the experience of knowing someone, I just feel like knowing somebody with autism, like the love is, you do feel how pure it is because it's not like it's not like it doesn't seem like there's like a lot of
Conditions.
effort.
Yes,
Yeah, it just
there's no
seems like it's
conditions on it.
effortless. Like I'm like, you literally just met me and you're like, hey bestie, and I'm like, you just met me. Like, hey sexy, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna need a little bit more
Yeah,
time to see if you really feel like I'm your bestie.
yeah, and a lot
I
of
love
people,
it.
be unsure about that because they've been hurt in the past. We all have things that's hurt us in the past, and a lot of trauma. And I realized that too, that a lot of us don't really let go of our past, even though we say we do. And to autistic people, there's really no gray area. It's kind of black and white. It's either you love me or you don't.
Mm.
That's where the difference is. As in how people look at it, they're like, well, I can love you, but I can still not love you by putting conditions on you. Autistic people look at it as like, when I love you, I actually mean it, and it's
Mm.
wholeheartedly unconditional. When an autistic person doesn't love you, they'll let you know, or they'll be like, I don't want to be around this person, or kind of like mask who they are. They won't be themselves, or they'll shut down socially.
Wow. So there's like literally like no nuance. Like with other people, you might have that nuance. Like, okay, I might like
Like that
you, but I
fake
don't love
genuine
you.
type of, yeah, like it's kind of like a fake genuine thing, and I'm like, I can't do that. I
They
tell
can
people
pick up. Y'all
I
can pick up
cannot do
on
that. I can't. I have
it.
tried. I can't do it.
Yeah, it's hard to like fake the funk and things like that sometimes. Like it's one thing to be cordial, but having to go to that next level and like fake the funk,
Yeah,
like you
it's like you
care
said,
about
being
somebody.
cordial is one thing, but to sit there and be like, "Oh, I genuinely care about you."
Mm-mm.
Autistic people can't do that. If we feel something is wrong, we immediately want to address it right then and there. Some people don't want to address it right then and there, and that's where the whole boundaries comes in.
Mm,
Sometimes we have to take a step back and look and say, okay, well, if they're not ready to address it or if they're not willing to change, what do I need to do differently?
mm. This is giving me a different perspective, sis, truly, because like like from the outside looking in, you would when you think about autism, you think about somebody just being like shy, like you were saying earlier. But you stand up for yourself. You are perceptive. You don't take no, mess. So that is a beautiful thing to understand. Like there definitely are all different shapes and sizes. And even though it seems as though y'all don't operate in the nuances, there are nuances between the different types of people that show up as autistic.
Right. And it's just the stereotype that most people feel about autistic people is that when it comes to autism, we don't have emotions,
Mm,
we don't speak, and that we tend to not be able to have empathy. And all of those
mm,
are not true. There are a
oh
lot
my
of us that have
goodness.
a lot of empathy. There are a lot of us that can speak. And there are also a lot of us that have emotions that other people would not even be able to begin to understand. Or we will teach other people emotions and patience, and they'll be like, wow, I learned something new about myself that I didn't even know.
And that's amazing because a lot of times it can be hard when you're on the outside looking in and you're like, okay, how do I navigate this? But to have that humility to say, what can I learn from someone that has autism and not just be like, like, looking at it a different way. So I really respect that.
Yeah.
So
I
humility matters.
I appreciate that so much. That's why it's like, that's why I tell parents too, the journey is not going to be easy for them. It's not. Like for me, it was not easy. Um, the worst thing that I've ever been told by
Mm-hmm.
somebody when they found out I had autism, someone literally told me, "I hope your autism kills you," and I'm like, autism can't kill people, but I didn't want to correct them. I was just like, you know
Yeah,
what?
don't
If they're gonna
dignify
say,
that, sis.
yeah, I was like, if they want to be nasty, they can be nasty. So
By
I'm gonna
themselves.
leave it alone. But I have been told things. I've been told I couldn't do certain things. I've been through all of it. But
Hmm.
I want parents to see that just because your child is this and they're telling you this, don't sit there and always believe that. You can change that. And your
Hmm.
child can change that once they get to that place where you can teach them to be comfortable in who they are. When they're comfortable with who they are, the world is endless. And there will be some autistic people that may not be able to get there because of the support. There's different support levels. But as long as you make sure that you have that support for them, they will be good and everything will be okay.
Right. It's important that you know the parents like try to work with the child so they can have the opportunity to flourish, right? So
Right.
like
Don't limit them, because I feel like um have that emotional, boundary, let them know like, yeah, you may be, cuz they're like, "Well, all of my friends are doing this or all the kids are doing this." That may be true. But right now, maybe it's not in your story to do that right at this second. Maybe God wants you to do it in another way, or maybe you need to learn it differently so you can be at that place. Don't compare yourself to other people. Do what you need to do.
right, that's an important lesson because I know that when people are different, it's like you were saying, it's a stigma, and they come. This automatically the default is to compare yourself to other people, but God didn't make you like them, and He made you like you are for a reason, like you were saying. So it's like up to you and your community to rally around you to show you, how to harness it and see it as a superpower of sorts.
Right. And always also, I know for some parents, I'm just going to say this too. For parents that feel like that they need help with their child with autism or ADHD, I am willing to do that because I tutor in that. There's actually not a lot of teachers and tutors for autism and ADHD
Mm,
kids.
wow, that's really something. Like you would think there would be more because it's a prevalent thing, you know?
Yeah, they most of the time the education system tends to, because they don't do so well, they tend to put them on the back burner and focus on the
Mm,
kids that do well. And the kids with autism and ADHD, just because they can't learn it like everybody else, they don't want to. You have to. I try to be very versatile with my students, which means I teach them in more than one way. If I teach them the first way and they don't understand it, I'm like, okay, let me show you in a different way. So then I
mhm,
show them another way, and then they like that way. I'm like,
mm,
okay, if that way gets you the correct answer and you can do it that way, do it. Most education systems are like, well, no, we're only going to teach this way and that's it. You can't do
right.
that because not all kids learn the same.
Hmm. So that's really a disservice, and it's really to me you're leaving untapped potential on the table. You never know what that child can be with a little love and nurturing and patience.
Right.
So that's a shame, and I really do hope that that changes in the future.
I hope so too. Like that's why I said, and I'm willing to help parents who have kids with autism in school or ADHD. I don't want no kid to feel like that they can't do it, because they can and they are capable, and I feel like that I will put that work in to make sure they get where they need to, because their future should matter to us, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to have a healthier generation of healthy relationships and no toxic relationships, and being able to be who they are, because a lot of us are still trying to figure out who we are.
Right. So I want to transition, and you were mentioning this earlier about neurodiversity. What does it mean to be neurodivergent?
So with neurodiversion, that means you are anywhere from autism, ADHD, and a couple other mental disorders falls in that category, which means that your brain is wired differently, whether it's socially or if it deals with being able to focus. So
Mhm.
your brain is just different than other people's brains. So it
Mhm.
means, like, for example, when you have autism, you're wired different socially. Sometimes you're
Mhm.
more sensitive to light. Sometimes you're, and it's not just a social thing for autism. It's also
Mhm.
like, for example, with me, I don't like loud noises. So sometimes I will tend to wear headphones a lot.
Mhm.
And there are other aspects to where um I don't like loud noises, but I can listen to my music all the way up and it'll be like loud. It's like, it's weird. It's a noise thing. But because my brain is so used to loud music, I can listen to that. But if I was to hear a fire alarm or something
Mhm.
go off, I would immediately feel anxiety or just be like, I don't like this noise. It's too much noise. I'm
Mhm.
gonna go away from that. So
Right.
this that it's a lot of things. There's some kids that they're very social, and then there are some kids that are very not really social
Mhm.
or in the middle. It's a variety of things that play into autism. Eye contact's another one. I know some of my students who, when they don't look at me, they hear me better because they're not
Mm.
looking at me, or they respond better when they don't look at somebody.
Mm. That's
Because a
interesting.
lot of people's like, oh, they're not looking at me, they're being weird. No, sometimes they don't look at you because they hear you better and it calms their brain down.
Mm. Too much visual stimulation.
Right.
Mm.
And a lot
That's
of people
deep.
don't realize that.
Yeah, that's deep because I don't know if you heard of Morgan Harper Nichols, but she's this artist and she is amazing. I love her work and the things that she posts on Instagram. And I think she was talking about that one time about how senses is something that kind of plays into it. Or I think she was writing about it in her bio. How you can be sensitive as far as your senses when it comes to being autistic and have ADHD because that's what she has. Um and she's someone that I feel like she's an advocate in that way, and
Yeah.
also a trailblazer. And I just feel like just all around, like she's so successful. And so it really shows you, like when you really stop to pay attention, there are people doing it. Okay, there are some examples out here. And also I love that I've noticed on Hallmark over the last couple of years, they've made an effort to do like at least two movies where like a child, like they had a character that was autistic, and there was an older child in one of them, then there was a younger child in another one. So I was like, okay, I feel like that's beautiful. I always get excited when I see that.
I get excited too when I see stuff like that. I'm hoping that they make more like books that deal with kids with autism. I'm hoping that they will eventually start making a TV show where the autistic character is the main character and has their own, especially for our community, because believe it or not, autism is actually very high in the Black community,
Mm.
and a
You
lot
know
of
what?
people don't notice that.
I feel like I heard of a show, like it was on HBO or somewhere, and they were talking about it was like it's like a group of people, and I feel like it was about autism, like everybody involved had autism, but I am not certain of the title, but I've heard of that recently.
I know this one recent show they have. I think it's on Netflix, the Love on the Spectrum thing, where
I
they get
think that might have been it. I don't know. I
uh,
don't know.
yeah, it's but
Was it a
it's
sitcom or a drama?
no, it was more like a love show. Like you know how they do like those
Oh,
bachelorettes and bachelor. It's a show for autistic
oh,
people to find love,
hold up
and
now. I didn't
I
know
didn't
that was a thing. Like
I
a
didn't know it was a
show.
thing either until somebody told me about it and was like they had auditions for the show. And I was like, "Oh."
Whoa. Wow. Talk about what do you call it? Progress. Because I didn't
Right.
know that
So
that was a
because a
thing.
lot of autistic people feel like too that they aren't going to find someone that's going to love them because someone doesn't understand them.
Yeah, and that's really
And
sad.
that's actually sad. I still have hope for love though. I know love is going to come
Aw,
for me.
that's beautiful. Keep hope alive, sis. Keep hope alive because
Yeah.
he made somebody, because there are some patient, gentle, kind souls out there that are loving and willing to see you. So keep hope alive for that. And so I want to say, what can we do as a community, as a society, to be more supportive of autistic people?
Um Well, what everyone can do, including autistic people, instead of us working against each other, let's just work together, respect each other's emotional boundaries, respecting each other's needs, and remember that it doesn't happen overnight. And autistic people tend to be want to be alone more,
Mhm.
and it's not because we don't want to not be around you. It's because we tend to love our alone time more, or we just feel like that, you know, just reassure us that you're not perceiving us in a bad light. And even if you feel
Mm.
like we're doing something wrong, come with it with unconditional love, support, and no toxic energy or like toxic relationship
Mm.
values. Come at it with a more peaceful and positive, healthy relationship values. And if you got to get therapy involved, maybe, or just seek advice from people with autism as well, because sometimes, as parents or as people who are friends with people with autism, you may not have all the answers, or you may be like, well, I don't know how to do that. So you can also get someone with autism and listen to their perspective and be like, well, did you maybe they're feeling this way because of this? Most of the time, autistic people, we're all different, but a lot of us tend to understand. each other in a way where we're like, okay, this is where this is coming into effect. Try to work this way. And I just feel like that we all just need to work together. That is the main goal here.
Mm. So do you feel like when you talk to another autistic person, y'all kind of have like a language, like an understanding?
We have an understanding as far as like you know, wanting our moments to take a social break and
Hmm.
not take it personally.
Right.
Because a lot of people take things personally like that, or they feel like that we're not trying to love them, or that we
Hmm.
don't accept them as they are, or it tends to be a negative experience. But a lot of autistic people, we tend to understand that social break, or
Hmm.
being like, feeling like, okay, they're not able to process what I just said. Let me give them a minute to process it first.
Mm. So, just in closing, if you could plant a seed for the listeners, if there was one thing that you want people to take away from this whole conversation, if there was one thing that they should hold on to in their hearts, their minds, their spirits about autism, what would that be?
That autism should be expressed in all communities, and that autism should be expressed in every industry and talked about everywhere. And we should also be able to learn to make people realize that all people come in different ways. You can still be a model and be autistic or have ADHD. You can still be a business owner and have autism. You can still be um a fashion designer and have autism. You can be a lot. It should be way more representation and more conversations. That's the main thing I would say.
Hmm. That's really deep though, because a lot of people are thinking they can't be. And you know what though, also I want to say that it's important to, when you're talking to somebody too, to not feel like, I'm learning that you can, people can, like people with autism can take more than you think. You don't have to be like fragile. Like you could tell them something, like be honest, but do
Right.
it in a gentle way. And
Yeah.
just encourage, but also kind of break into that narrative sometimes. Like nobody supports me. I'm supporting you. I'm here. You know, just kind of
Yeah.
like you said, reassure. So that's what I'm learning too. Like I don't have to handle nobody with kid gloves. I don't have to, you know, so that's really been enlightening, and I think that more people should have friends that are autistic and try to really just be somebody's friend. Don't feel like you only can be over here in your circle. Step out
Right.
of your circle a little bit and just like get to know different kinds of people.
Exactly. And believe it or not, as out of all of my friends, they told me I'm like one of the most sweetest and realest person they know.
Oh.
And
See,
I
they missing out.
that's
So, are there any projects that you are working on?
there are a couple of projects I'm working on. I'm currently working on this project to help people with mental health have like
Mhm,
a self-care retreat.
mhm,
Hopefully I'm going to do that with the vacation business that I have on the side, the travel agent. And then I also have a project where I'm going to be speaking up about more autism awareness and also giving advice to parents, friends, families, anybody that really needs it, especially if they have an autistic loved one. And just overall, I'm going to make sure that our generation has a healthier goal when it comes to education and just our mental health in general.
and that's a beautiful thing. Being an advocate, keep shining, keep speaking up, be the voice for the voiceless. That's all admirable.
I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, so tell the people, how can they connect with you?
You guys can connect with me through Instagram. And you guys can also connect with me through TikTok. And if you want to connect with me in any other ways, you guys can just DM me and I'll answer you.
Alrighty then, all of your information will be below. So make sure y'all go to the description wherever you're listening or watching and get all the tea on Mona. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful.
Oh, you're welcome. So everybody, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure that if you want more content like this, you follow me at B Channel 27 on all social platforms. Make sure you leave a comment, a review, a rating, and just let me know what y'all think about this. And thank y'all so much once again. And peace and blessings until next time.